Welcome to another Drawing Sessions of the Raven. I'm your host, Ray. If you're new here, I am working on The Raven. It is a Noir-style suspense thriller one-shot comic. I'm documenting the process as I go, sharing my thoughts, techniques, and whatever else pops into my crazy head as I draw. Let me set my timer and let's get into it. So last time I finished drawing these couple of panels, and this is still all very much in the rough stage, but I just want to get through all these panels to get to the next step, which is inking. Of course, I got to do the backgrounds and foregrounds. Then I can go and ink and be happy with it all, hopefully. Okay, let's not move that around. This is why I like to lock layers, because I don't want to accidentally move stuff around. I didn't mean to move around. So, all right. So the idea is that he's going to get in his truck. He's going to go home. All right. So trying to do as much narration through the pictures without having to say, meanwhile, back at the crib, so like, instead of doing stuff like that, I just want to, it's obvious he's getting in his truck. Hopefully, because he did tell him to go home here. And so I'm hoping that that is pretty obvious that that's where he's headed. Originally, I had planned where he was just going to be washing his face. I think what we'll do is I'll have it be his face down. Thinking this is to do it. His hands are going to be kind of here, right? The meat of his hands, Let's just pretend. And then his face would be, his nose more or less. If you're looking down, his head would be like this. Whoa. Let's just pretend. And the bridge of his nose, something like that. And so then he's going to have his hands just kind of, trying to think of how I want his hands to look. So his thumb over here and the rest of his hand just kind of randomly gripping at his face because he's pouring water over his face, right? So his thumb should come out a little further than that. Oops. It's a blender. It's not going to work. Yeah, I just realized I'm doing that backwards in my head because I'm not thinking about if you're looking at him in the mirror, which is kind of what I was going for, it's going to be, this would be his left hand. So it's fun. This is the kind of thing I like to do. I like to figure this kind of stuff out. It's kind of fun. So he can, maybe his fingers here, maybe he's got his thumb back here, kind of washing his head, So I'm just blocking in the basic shape to make sure I'm cool with the way it looks. So he'd be like, his thumbnail will be facing outward, right? And then this would be flexed. His hand might be more flexed or more bent than I'm showing here, but it's okay. We can do the same thing with the other side and just make it look a little bit different. Now you could copy and paste and flip it, which I usually like to do stuff like that if I'm in a rush, but I'm getting closer to the end of this, so we'll swing it a little bit. Let's just do, like, this finger could be a little more inward, like he's rubbing his hand through his head. I'm just as surprised as you are when stuff works out. Hey, I actually did that okay. So if he's washing his head, his hands aren't going to be perfect, They'll be perfectly like on his head. They're going to be, I don't know why I'm gesturing that like you could see me off camera there, but something like this. That's how I'm thinking of it. So maybe his impressions of his fingernails, right? So his left hand, his left hand would be on this side if you're looking at him in the mirror. And if his fingers are more flexed as he's rubbing his hands through his hair, you may not necessarily see the ends of his fingers. You might see, I know this looks terrible. I was just trying to rough out an idea. I might do something like his hair is in his hands, Let's see. As he's kind of pushing his hair back. He's rubbing water in his hair, right? And so this hand, I'm trying to foreshorten that side, and I don't like the way that looks. So he's got the meat of his hand coming down. Your elbow's going to be back here, more or less. His hand's going to be closed off. His shoulder coming over the top, kind of like that. It doesn't have to be closed off like this, because, it's part of his hand, but part of his hand's a part of his arm, so to speak, like it kind of connects. But you can give an impression. Yeah, that's kind of cool. And then, of course, get a little impression of his fingernail if you want. And then his hair is kind of in the way, so you can't really tell. Thumb's a little on the long side. I'm just working this through, talking about my process as I go, like I said. So if it's cool, if it's useful to you, or if you like it, cool, let me know. If it's not, also, that's fine. Let me know. Just something I've been wanting to do for a long time is finish some ideas I had. Yeah, his pinky's a little thick on that side of the knuckle. Mostly I'm just blocking in shape and then working it as I go. On that ulnar side, it's just the kind of it's the kind of stuff that I try to remind myself of is when you're thinking about how the bones are, try to remember where the ulnar side is or the elbow side. That way you know what to expect the hand should look like. And this is kind of connecting around, kind of overlapping a little too much, so let's try something like that might work. And so like his hand being in his hair like this might keep you from being able to see all the detail of his fingers. And maybe his other hand is going to be in the front side. And I know it looks kind of, this still looks a little grotesque to me. I'll have to keep working it. Usually it get it where I'm happy, but there we go. That's good enough, more or less. Sometimes the fingernail for me, for some reason, I don't like the way it looks when it's fully drawn in. So I just kind of, you don't, it's not really hard lined like I guess is why. So it being softer like that makes more sense to me. Just me. Just how I see it. A little refinement. Okay. So he's got his hair in the sink. His hand would be coming up and block the majority of it in. So he's going like this. This other hand here. So his thumb out this way. I do it this way sometimes because I'm trying to basically kind of counting the amount of bones that you have in your hand and how long they should be, basically. I'm trying to remember the distal part of your hand. You have a distal, proximal, and medial phalange, and then you have the carpals, and the metacarpals. That's what I'm thinking of. Yeah, don't quote me on that. I can't remember right now. But anyway, I'm trying to make sure that I know that there's 3 sections to your bone of your finger, right? So I kind of do that usually. And this is a little bit messier over here than that. But if you do that and you kind of keep their lengths relatively consistently long, when I say relative, I mean to themselves, you should be able to get the structural outline of a hand like you would expect it to look. And then that allows you to kind of, depending on the camera angle, kind of force the hand to fit into your view. I think is what I'm trying to say. And if it looks a little stiff, you can cut it off and cut it off. No, like for instance, this might be a little too stiff. If his hand is this way, or if his hand is this way. And the meat of the hand is here, so this side's a little short. I mean, a little thin. It needs to be a little thicker than that, I think. So I just try to think of the meat of the fingers like this. It's sort of like, it's a rectangle with slight embellishments on either side. It's really basic shapes to create the feel. That's the pinky ring, middle. That's being flexed, of course. And then at this angle, it starts to feel like his hand is actually in his hair to me. Then I know that I'm going the direction I wanted to go. I always think of like this is kind of funny to say, but I think of like I think of Terminator and stuff, and when his skeleton was exposed. That's for whatever reason I always think of that. So that's more or less his hand structure, right? And then you have the fatter part of your hand here on the pinky side. Let me see. It kind of wants to curve inward a little. Kind of like that. So I usually go for this process when I'm trying to draw a hand, and then and not so much go straight for it like this. Again, it just depends on how you want to do it, but that's just my approach. We'll just hand out a little bit more. And if you're thinking of like perspective and stuff, it starts to make more sense because you have to start thinking about foreshortening. And foreshortening, of course, is just if you're looking at a cylinder from the top versus looking at it from the side, right? As you shift it, it'll go from being a circle to, like that kind of view. It's the same thing with these. If you treat these like that, they become three-dimensional objects. On the other side, they'd look like this, that kind of thing. If you keep that in mind when you're drawing them, those objects, then it, for me anyway, I don't know if it's helpful to you or not, but that helps me to kind of keep track of where I think his hands should be, his fingers and stuff, how they're flexing. So he's just like throwing his hands and is in the midst of putting water on his face, is what I'm trying to say. And then foreshortening his hand, here his hand could be like that. That's fine. He just dipped it in the sink, let's say. And then I'm going to take his elbow, foreshorten his elbow, which would connect underneath. The ulnar side is the pinky side, remember. So if you're connecting it here, that elbow might come underneath here. But if you just draw circles to connect, say, like the forearm, and then where you think the elbow would be and where the shoulder would be, you can see how your brain can make sense of that space. And then if you're happy with the way that looks, you're good. So start with, let me just use a different layer, that way I can erase easier. If you say his shoulder is roughly up here, right? So if you start with the base of his shoulder here, his bicep is more or less, his deltoid comes down that way. His bicep would more or less, that's his tri rather. His bicep could be there. And then his forearm and his elbow would have to be over here in this region. So you have to make sure that the way that you have his hand positioned makes sense to how he's sitting or standing. So there's his, let's say that's his upper part of his torso. Let's do it that way. So if I'm looking at him downward, this is, say, his rib cage area. His shoulder should be more or less in this region. So his shoulder, the pocket, if you will, his deltoid would be coming off like that. His elbow, or his bicep, his arm, not the forearm, more or less like that. And then if you're going to connect this here, his hand would have to be flexing really hard there. So let me just cut some of that back. That way it looks more like, to me anyway, that his hand could be connected that way. Of course, it would come under probably a little bit. If he's got his hand here, his elbow would have to connect underneath that side. So, I mean, he's really got his hand tucked underneath him. I'm just talking through my process again, if it makes any sense to anybody. If it feels like his hand's wrong, which it does to me a little bit, not the hand itself, but this angle. I'm just going to keep working it until I'm happy. So if his elbow were down here, his arm would be extended, right? And then he could, as long as it looks believable, that's all I'm going for. And that could be it right there. You know, his hand is cutting into, this is his, I'll only section this off for the sake of seeing it, but if you think about the deltoid being in here and then the bicep being in here, then you could see that that's possible. His arm could be there. And then just make his form a little bit bigger. Yeah, that could work. I mean, his hands don't have to be absolutely perfect. His arms don't have to be exactly like you think they should be evenly displaced. Sometimes when you do stuff like that, your one arm is way out, your other arm is closer in. Just kind of how you do things sometimes. As long as the anatomy lines up, and to me, that lines up well enough, then I'm okay with it. And I don't know if you could see his shirt. Maybe you could see his shirt. Anyway, you get that this is his hair, right? And I was going to do, I'll do a background and all that stuff too, obviously, but I was going to do where he's got his head down and the water is, splashing off of him. Probably not the best representation of water. I can always come back and do that again. But usually, like if you're hitting water with the faucet too, it'll splash, like it'll kind of connect to where you're throwing it into your face. That more or less works. And we can just have this be like a mirror. I swear. It's just a frame holder, and I'm still, hang on. Yeah, that's good enough. All right, and you can just get the impression that it's a mirror, right? To say he's splashing water in his face, and you don't see anything else. Just this. I can always come back and refine this, by the way. It's good to step away if you don't like the way it looks, which is okay right now. I don't know that I love the way this looks. He's got a little bit too much thinness going on in his hand, so on his fingers here. Personally, I think his thumb's not deep enough too. Like the pocket for your thumb comes down, goes quite a bit further than that. I'm not really sure why. I'm not loving the way that looks. Let's see. The left hand looks a lot more natural, I guess. The right hand just looks. All right, let's just redo this part. Maybe it's. I mean, the connection down here is fine. It was just the thumb coming out. Might be that mass coming down of his hand. His fingers are like alien fingers. All right, hang on. Let me just see. Squash it down a little bit. Stretch it out. I might end up redrawing his hand. It's just how you gotta do sometimes. You know what? His finger is a little too stretched out over here. Let's just put this finger behind this one. And yeah, you know what? I'm gonna redraw this. That's what you gotta do sometimes. Just gotta redraw stuff. It's okay. Let me just see the size of this hand in reference. Okay, there's the meat of his hand. That's how I usually do it. I usually give myself the meat of his hand, so to speak, because I know where the thumb should connect, basically, like over here. And then it gives me a reference for the rest of the fingers, more or less the length I want them to be. That's a little more organic looking, I think. And then, of course, you can, stylize the fingers to be more, less rigid looking and more flexed. Let's say you put the middle of the finger there. I think that's okay. I think his finger's a little thin. Or, yeah, a little thin. Whoops. No, what's wrong with you? Okay. I don't know why I did that. In reference to his other hand, I think that's good. So his pinky here is a little too straight, I think. I don't know what I'm doing. Okay, so I'm going to pull. I'm having to reach across my key to get to my keyboard. All right, so that's a little more what I was thinking. Like your hands tend to flex more. You're throwing that up in your hand. Your hands stretch out a little more than what I have them. They're a little too straight, I feel like. And I'm gonna do the same thing for this finger. Yeah, this should more or less be what I want. And then I can rework this, these the skin between his fingers, so to speak. All right, so here now I'm pretty happy with the way that works, the way that looks. Again, pinky ulnar side, so you tend to have your ulnar connection, the malleus, I believe, if I remember my anatomy. It kind of sticks out on there, and then the forearm will come sort of hooked. Yeah. Oh wait, hang on. I just realized this is not connected now. Hang on. So that should more or less be like that. And then his forearm comes down, connects to the meat of his arm down there. And again, foreshortening, so you're not going to see as much of it. Right now it looks like he's wearing a glove, so I'm just going to cut that off. And give him knuckle impression, so to speak. So I don't care if there's mess everywhere, because I'm just going to clean this up later. But I got to get that out of the way so I can see if I like the way the overall design is, so to speak, of his hands and his face. And then we can give him part of a... All right, give him his fingerlings. Now his impressions of his fingernails is cool with me. The meat of your hand should come down right at the back of the malleolus here. Again, I think I'm saying that correctly. I think I'm remembering it correctly. There's a sharpness to where your hand comes down, and it's going to be flexed a little bit. You're flexing. You're compressing on the inside of your forearm, and so it's stretching that skin. But you tend to have creases in your hand, even if it's flexed, right? So you can kind of see that, get that look, and maybe his knuckles off to the wrong spot, and his thumb knuckle, yes, might be a little bit too wide. I'm just going for refinement a little bit here, because your thumb tends to have a little bit of curve to it. It's not like it's perfectly straight, but I am currently listening to Annie James. If anyone knows or would like to know, no, Annie James is an amazing guitar player. He's now playing for Five Finger Death Punch, actually. That was really trippy. Listening to him since like 2016, and I thought it was pretty cool that he's doing so well for himself. All right, so I think that works. I think his hand's a little on the stiff side. It could fatten it up a little bit. I mean, I overall think that works. I'm not the best at drawing hands, as you can tell. I usually go for more... Hands are incredibly expressive. So, I mean, we have entire sign languages based on hands, right? So I try my best to keep them expressive and realistic looking, within reason. I'm not trying to be 100% realistic. It is, again, it's a comic, and I'm not concerned with absolute realism when it comes to comic book drawings. I want to tell a story. And I'm not trying to excuse myself. I can do realism. Like, I can reference and do realism all day. But I like I like that expressiveness in it. I like the expressiveness and forcing myself to make mistakes and learn from those mistakes. And this will be nice and rendered, I think, when I'm done. But for now, just this will be the water coming off of his head. So he's gonna be splashing water up in his nose and his face and everything. I honestly think that works pretty well. He's a little disheveled, you know, he's had a rough day. Maybe he's still wearing his shirt. What do you think? Let's just say that's what he's doing. All right, so has his shirt on. Because he just got home, he's just splashing his face. Can't believe what he saw. Nobody was, you know, not sure if the police even believe what he said. And, oh, I guess I need to do his body too, huh? So, again, it's easier to think of it as his body's coming down while he's standing here, right? His thumb might be a little big on this side. I'm just nitpicking, but when you go to ink it 2, you're gonna find that the lines that you find when you ink are gonna be different than what you sketched, and that's what makes it interesting when you get to that point. You kind of have to decide all over again, like what you want the main lines to be. That's why I like to keep it loose and sketched like this, because then you have that big fat line. And if you use a really big, thick black line, so that's relatively small. But if you use a bigger line, say like a 50, you know, you can get that line weight variation and really. So like if you were doing this, let me zoom in so you can see. So like if you were to do this, maybe you want this to be kind of subtle. So much of a difference that makes. All right, well that took about 45 minutes for that panel, and usually it takes that long to do, but this was an interesting angle. I honestly have never drawn somebody splashing water on their face before, so I didn't know how it was going to come out, and I think it's okay. Wait, where's the color? So for what I'm doing, I think it's going to work fine. I'm gonna merge these together. All right, so now this foreground, background kind of thing is one piece. It's okay if the sketch is one piece, because when I come back and do inking and stuff, I'll make sure that I usually put the ink on one solid layer, the penciling on another layer, and then the color on a separate layer. So the trick was supposed to be all right, so this was going to be the bird being off. Hang on. I'm as much telling you as I am myself. So let me see. He hears the sound of the raven. So what I was going to do, I think, was, again, he's just going to be, maybe he turns around or something. You can have like the, sort of like the mirror. Yeah. So we'll have maybe like the mirror. Hold on. That text won't be there, so let me kill that. So he hears the sound. Let me kill this call too. Okay. Maybe he's got the mirror this way. And he turns around. Let me draw. All right. So I don't go through much trouble with the ear, because, I mean, if you wanted to, you could sit here and be intricate with the ear, and it's not really all that necessary for me. So here's a little on the small side, though. So this is why the guidelines are really good. I didn't do that because I'm just hurrying up, I guess. But, so, you know, he's terrified looking. He's had a rough day, rough night. Like I say, he doesn't know where his friend went, and he's not sure what's going to happen to him now. It's a little small like that. Let me, hang on. See, I'm just refining as I go. If you have a character sheet, it would save you a lot of time. So don't do what I do. Do as you should. And let me cut this off, because you can't. I don't know what I'm doing. Sometimes I just get like caught up on what I'm doing, and I'm not sure why I'm not happy with it, but that's going to have to work. All right. And then has got like a little belt buckle thing on. Let's see. What would I do? Pretense, you know, looks terrified. He's the most expressive character that I drew, because I think he has the most, like, has the most time in the book, so to speak. Not to give it away, but obviously, if you're watching these, I am giving it away. So that's cool. His ears a little wide. I'm not going for absolute perfectionism here. That's the thing that slows you way down. I just don't even bother anymore. I mean, I used to have really bad OCD of stuff, and I try not to, because again, it doesn't do anybody any good. It doesn't do you any good to be a perfectionist. It won't make you any better. Actually, make you worse, if anything, because you never really learn. You're so dissatisfied with everything you're doing. You tend to just not try. You kind of give up before you get a chance to even do anything. It's okay. Just make mistakes and move on. It doesn't have to be perfect. And if you're listening to people that are like, it doesn't look professional to me, don't listen to that. I mean, why would you listen to that? Don't let people tell you, just do your thing, man. You're going to learn. You're going to learn. It's the only way to do it is to keep doing it. If you just give up, or before you even try because you feel like you can't do something, that's the worst. So let's see. Let me give this guy water maybe coming off of his face, Maybe he's got water on his shirt, water coming off of him. So it kind of makes him look like he's sweating, but obviously he just had some water coming off of his head. I don't think I like the way that looks. And also, it's okay to adjust stuff. Like if you're not happy with the way something looks, but I'm talking like you're not even giving yourself the chance to do it and quitting before you even begin. That sucks to do to yourself, man. Let's hang on. Yeah, that's a little better. I just cut it until I'm happy, and then so he's a big chunky monkey, this guy. I can go through and do more background stuff when I come back, as I just want to get the story done in terms of the main characters, and if I'm happy with that, I was gonna say if I deleted that, I was gonna be so mad. Okay. Because you can only go back so far, when you're saving. Okay, that wasn't bad. It only took about, I don't even know, a few minutes, like 13 minutes to draw this panel. That's not bad. Oh, I did forget something though. See his arm right there. It's not a big deal, but might as well. Let it show his arm. So he's kind of chubby, but he's also strong. That's kind of what I was going for. All right, I've only got like a few minutes, like 3 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and just call it here, and we'll get on to this next panel the next time. All right, that's going to wrap up this session. If you're enjoying the process, hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.